Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is Josh Guerrero here, and welcome to the All Around Adventure Podcast. Whether you're joining me for the first time, or if you've been listening to the podcast for a while now, I certainly do want to welcome you here. And as always, I want to thank you for being here today. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on, and there's so much out there on the internet these days that's trying to get your attention and distract you. But it just means the world to me that you've chosen to download and listen to this podcast. Now, if you are in fact new to this podcast and you're not entirely sure what we're all about here, this is the show where you hear amazing tales from afar and get the all-important life lessons that go along with them. And those will be stories from myself, as well as the fantastic guests that I welcome on this podcast. And I'm talking with travelers of all kinds on this show. I am talking with elite warriors, entrepreneurs, digital nomads, best-selling authors, bloggers, adventurers, philanthropists, you name it. If they have a fantastic travel story to tell with some great life lessons to share, it's my job to seek them out and bring them on this podcast and extract their stories and life lessons through powerful conversations to help you level up in your life. Now, today's episode is a little bit different. You have me today. This is another edition of my solo show called Travel Reflections, which is exactly how it sounds, where I just share some of my travel experiences or maybe times I was living abroad and I tried to extrapolate some sort of life lesson to share with you all in hopes that you can implement it into your own life to help you out. Now, today's episode, as you saw, it is titled The Words We Tell Ourselves. And I wanted to talk about this today because I believe that the words that we tell ourselves can be very, very powerful. Whether it be positive or negative, much of the stuff that we say to ourselves will manifest itself in our lives in some way, shape, or form, whether, again, good or bad. And this goes along with a quote that I've heard from the late, great Bruce Lee. He once said, "As you think, so shall you become." So therefore, going along with that, if the words we tell ourselves are constantly negative, we're bringing ourselves down, saying awful things about ourselves in our own minds and in our head, then eventually that's it's going to manifest itself in how we carry ourselves and project ourselves out into the world. Now, on the flip side, if we are positive in what we say to ourselves, giving ourselves positive affirmations, then that in turn will lead us to do and project positive things out there into the world. And I kind of experienced this myself when I was a grad student in England. There was a moment during my journey as a grad student. I was there studying field archaeology at the University of York. Now, when I first went there, I've been out of college for a while now. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in 2011, and I went to England to start my master's in 2015. So good few years off from the academic scene. And it was during that time I had done Peace Corps and done a few other things. And here I was getting back into academia. So had to get readjusted to life as a student again. And not only that, but there's a few other things that I had to adjust to as well when I was going to when I was a student over in England. And one of them was the British way of writing essays. You know, they do things a little bit different. Grading's a little bit different set of standards than what I was used to. So that was something I had to adjust to. And I remember we had an essay to write, and this particular essay wasn't really going to be graded. It was just kind of sort of an assessment to kind of see where we're at. And so that way we can kind of get feedback from our professors. And I remember this essay that I wrote for one of my classes, I just did awful. I did absolutely terrible. My score was just a complete mess. And I felt really, really bad. And it just, because it was a pretty big failure. And this was very early on in my tenure as a student there at York. I was only like a couple months in, and well, not even a couple months in. I was still in like the first semester, so more like a few weeks in. And I just did absolutely terrible with this essay. And I just remember that I kind of had a little bit of negative self-talk with myself at first. I just said, "Man, Josh, you really suck at this writing thing, and you did terrible at this." But then I kind of just realized what I was doing, because I was beating myself up and I was making myself feel terrible, and I was kind of pushing myself further and further down, like this deep dark hole, to where, I didn't really quite get thoughts about quitting or giving up, but I felt pretty terrible. I didn't feel very good at all. So I kind of had to work on my mindset a little bit here. And I decided to actually focus on, okay, I, did terrible at this, but how can I make myself better? What can I do so that way when I have to write another essay, and thankfully for this particular essay, it wasn't graded, so I didn't get this terrible, awful marking that I had. But for the next essay, when I actually am being graded, what can I do better to improve it? And so I just decided I need to keep myself open for feedback. And whether it's critical feedback or whatever else, I had to be open to receive it. So I met with my professor, the one that was teaching this particular class for in which I had to write this essay. And I just listened to what she had to say. She was a little bit shocked that I had scored so low, especially because I did really well with oral presentation. I think it should probably go without saying I'm a much better speaker than I am a writer. So she was a little bit surprised that my writing seemed to be not quite up to snuff here. And so, but she gave me some really good feedback, and I was really open to it. It sounded like she was worried about being critical to me and to say, well, that I clearly did not do very well on this. But I was open to what she had to say, and I took in what she had to say, and I was willing to apply it moving forward so that way I could do better next time. So really and lo and behold, I did a hell of a lot better with the next essay that I wrote for this class, and this was the one that was actually graded. It was a night and day difference, all because I was willing to take that failure, not beat myself up too much over it, and encourage myself that I can do better, and being open to feedback from others to help me get better. And therefore, I was able to just get an awesome grade, and I felt really good in the end. So when it comes to the words that we tell ourselves, especially at the moments when we experience failure, there's a dichotomy to it. On one end, I in this particular situation, and I'll just probably encourage you all to keep this in mind, maybe when you're thinking about failures that you faced in your own life, is you have to be honest with yourself about the fact that you did fail, and you got to take ownership of that failure. So in this instance, I had to take ownership in saying, I did not do very well with writing this essay. And I have lots of room to improve. It doesn't mean that I'm an awful person. It doesn't mean that I can't, succeed at being an academic, or I guess I'll say a student actually, but there's ways that I had to improve, and I had to tell that to myself. And, sometimes the words I say to myself could seem a little bit critical. I'll say something along as man, Josh, you done fucked this up, man, but you can get better. And let's start thinking of ways in which to improve and to get better. And I've applied the same mindset to other instances in my life where I've experienced a failure as well. Quick side story, when I was in the Marine Corps back in my late teens, early 20s, there was times when I put on a lot of weight, and I became what the Marine Corps refers to as a fat body. And that's a whole nother story, but I'll kind of just give you the gist of that. I had to tell myself, Josh, you're fat, man. You're fat and you need to lose weight. You're a Marine. You need to get yourself in shape. You need to be an asset to the Corps. So I had to say that to myself. Josh, you're fat. And in doing so, I was able to recognize that I had to make a change in my life. Because I was in the military, I could be expected to fight in combat. And if I'm out of shape, then I'm not going to be very effective, and I could hold Marines back. And even worse, I could potentially get Marines killed. And thinking about that was an awful feeling. So I had to say, yes, you're out of shape. You're fat, Josh, but you don't have to be. You can fix this. Let's start thinking of a way how. And then I said, and I would, in order to give myself positive affirmations to make that change, or to learn and overcome from that failure that I've was faced with, is just I had to believe in myself that I can do it, and that I can get better, and that I had the potential, and I had what it takes to actually make that change. And then in this particular case, talking about the Marine Corps, about a year later, I ran the Marine Corps Marathon. something that I never thought I could have ever done. It's just, I think up until this point, the furthest I might have ran was maybe like 5-6 miles, something like that. And then to jump all the way up to 26.2 in about a year, not bad at all. And that was because I was willing to have those positive affirmations to tell myself that I could do it. But of course, I did have to recognize that I've fallen short at this one time and I failed at this one time, and that I had to improve myself to get better. And it was the same thing when I was going to be a master's student. Yes, I had to acknowledge that I was a poor writer in that moment when I got that bad grade. But I had to tell myself that I had what it takes, I'm capable of learning, and I'm open to the feedback from those who were willing to help me, whether it was critical or whatever else. And then I was willing to apply those, and so that way I can get better. And then, of course, when I did get that better grade, then that set a good precedent moving forward into the rest of my academic year leading up to me getting my master's degree. So the words we tell ourselves are very powerful. And as I mentioned, there's a dichotomy to this. If you fail at something, say it. I failed. But always follow it up with, but I can do better and I can improve on this, and start telling yourself ways in which you can do and how you can improve and how you can get better. And of course, I'll leave it up to you to decide or apply this in your own personal life. I mean, I gave you an example in the realms of health and wellness and physical fitness, and an example in the realm of academia. But I'm sure you could probably find instances in several areas of your life where this sort of mindset and thinking can be beneficial, whether you're a parent, or maybe you're trying to start a business, or if you're facing, some failures in your career, whatever it might be. Lord knows I've failed many times in my career as an archaeologist, but same mindset applied. Acknowledging the failure, not beating myself up over it, and giving myself consistent negative self-talk to, drive me further and further to the point where I just let this failure overwhelm me. But then utilizing this mindset that I can improve, that I had what it took to improve, finding solutions and to the problems that resulted in the failure in the first place, and reminding myself that I can get better and then that I had what it took. So yeah, that's really all I had to say on that today. Just kind of a short one for you all today. So keep this in mind whenever you face failures in your life, and whatever areas of those lives those might turn up into. All right, everyone. That's it for now. Again, just a short one today. Appreciate you all tuning in. I hope you found this episode beneficial. If you did, as always, I would appreciate you leaving a rating review for the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Get us trending higher so that way more people can find this episode and get some value from it as well. Also, subscribe. New episodes come out every single Monday. I alternate between a solo cast and a guest episode every other Monday. And also, we have a group. If you want to be part of the group, it's called Travel Titans. It's on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/Travel Titans, if you're interested in joining us. And that's it for now, everyone. I appreciate you. I appreciate you tuning in today. It certainly means a lot to have your support. And I know that you got a lot going on, as I've mentioned earlier, but the fact that you're tuning in today to listen to what I had to say, it means a lot to me, and I certainly don't take it for granted. All right, everyone. Appreciate it again. And I'll see you all next Monday with a brand new episode featuring another fantastic guest. Be sure to check back in for that one. But until then, I'm Josh Guerrero saying be safe, happy travels, and always move forward.